Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. President Donald Trump has hailed the great American comeback in a speech to Congress that exposed sharp divisions at the top of US politics.
The best is yet to come. Thank you.
At his annual State of the Union address, Mr. Trump set out his case for another 4 years in office. The Republican president delivered Tuesday night's nationally televised speech in the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives, where he was impeached in December. To the surprise of many, at the end of his speech, the Democratic House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, ripped up a copy of his speech behind him.
Anything else you want to say, Madam Speaker?
Because it was a manifesto of mistruths.
And what do you think about him not shaking your hand?
We always extend a hand of friendship. If he rejects it, that's up to him.
Were you invited to another State of the Union?
Hopefully not. I'm expecting another president.
9
months from today.
Meanwhile, in Iowa, Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders are leading in the first vote to choose the Democratic candidate to run against President Donald Trump in November's election.
Thank you all very much.
The vote has been chaotic, particularly after technical problems caused delays in reporting the results. Iowa's Democratic Party said data from 71% of precincts showed Mr. Buttigieg on 26.8%, with Mr. Sanders on 25.2%. Elizabeth Warren was third on 18.4%, while the favourite to take the Democratic nomination, Joe Biden, was fourth. At least 10 people on board a cruise ship docked in the Japanese port of Yokohama have tested positive for the coronavirus. Almost 300 of the 3,700 people on the Diamond Princess have been tested so far. It's thought the number of infected could rise. The checks began after an 80-year-old Hong Kong man who had been on the ship last month fell ill with the virus. Some 3,600 people on a second cruise ship docked in Hong Kong are also being tested. The wife of the Prime Minister of Lesotho has been formally charged in court with murdering his previous wife. First Lady Maisea Tabane, seen here on the left, surrendered to police on Tuesday for questioning. Prime Minister Thomas Tabane has also been questioned. His ex-wife, Lipoleo Tabane, was shot dead outside her home in the capital, Masuru, 2 days before his inauguration in 2017. The couple were involved in bitter divorce proceedings at the time. At least 23 people have been killed and dozens more trapped after a second avalanche struck a mountainside in Turkey. About 300 rescue workers were at the site near the eastern border with Iran, dealing with an earlier avalanche on Tuesday that killed 5 people. More than 50 people were believed to be trapped in vehicles in the area following the incident on Wednesday. Pictures from the scene show people being carried away on stretchers. Search and rescue efforts are ongoing. The Interior Ministry says 30 people have been pulled from the snow so far. The number of dead or injured could reportedly rise further. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Algiers to demand the departure of the ruling elite in the 50th consecutive week of restless anti-government protests in Africa's largest country. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune was elected in December to replace veteran leader Abdelaziz Bouteflika, who was forced to step down in April amid protests demanding a total change of the power structure. But protesters believe the election did not result in real regime change. Flash floods and incessant torrential rains in New Zealand's South Island have left several hundred tourists stranded for days and forced many residents to evacuate their homes on Wednesday. Rivers are overflowing and power supply has been cut to thousands of residents in the Southland region as civil defence declared a state of emergency in the area and asked people in low-lying areas to evacuate immediately. Earlier this week, rescue teams airlifted some of the nearly 500 stranded tourists in the remote Milford Sound region after torrential rains cut road access to the popular tourist destination. Many of these tourists and hotel staff are still stuck in the area as road access remains cut off. Civil defence officials have said it could be several days before the water level in the rivers returns to normal. And finally, this year's Nice Carnival is preparing to play host to legends of fashion, including Karl Lagerfeld and Jean-Paul Gaultier in mechanical form. The theme for the annual event is King of Fashion, with Lagerfeld, creative director of houses including Chanel and Fendi until his death, taking pride of place. There's also an oversized Gaultier, who put on his last catwalk show after 50 years in the business last month. Last year, the carnival attracted more than 200,000 spectators. The event has been a fixture of the city on the French Riviera for almost 150 years. And that's your international news around the world in 5.